For decades, the Borg stood as one of Star Trek's most terrifying creations, not because they were loud or theatrical villains, but because they were the opposite. Cold, silent, inevitable. They didn't rage, they didn't gloat, they simply assimilated. That was the horror. That was the point. And now, one of the franchise's most controversial changes to the Borg has quietly cemented itself as official canon, transforming them from a force of nature into something far less compelling. Originally introduced in Star Trek, The Next Generation, the Borg were the ultimate collective. No individuality, no ego, no central villain to defeat. They were a decentralized consciousness, an unstoppable tide. When Captain Picard faced them, there was no clever speech or emotional breakthrough that could stop them, only survival. But everything changed with the introduction of the Borg Queen. At first, the Queen seemed like a necessary narrative tool. Films like First Contact needed a face, a voice, a presence audiences could latch onto. And visually, she was unforgettable, calm, sinister, and dripping with calculated menace. Yet her existence fundamentally altered what the Borg were. By giving the Borg a singular leader, the franchise unintentionally shrank them. The collective stopped feeling like an incomprehensible hive mind and started resembling a hierarchy. Suddenly, there was a head of the snake to cut off. And once that idea took hold, the Borg became defeatable in a much more conventional way. Worse still, the Queen introduced something the Borg were never meant to have: personality. She taunts. She schemes. She seduces. These are deeply individual traits, exactly what the Borg were supposed to erase. The Queen doesn't feel like the collective. She feels like a villain controlling it. That subtle shift reframes every Borg encounter. Instead of humanity versus an unknowable force, it becomes a battle of wills between protagonists and a single antagonist. Recent Star Trek series have doubled down on this interpretation, further solidifying it as canon. The Borg Queen is no longer an anomaly. She's central to their identity. Entire storylines hinge on her motives, her survival, her plans. The collective, once vast and alien, now orbits around her like subjects around a ruler. This change also undercuts one of the Borg's most chilling ideas, that individuality itself is fragile. The original Borg weren't evil in a traditional sense. They were simply different, operating under a logic that saw assimilation as perfection. That ambiguity made them fascinating. With the Queen, that nuance fades. Her actions feel personal, even emotional, turning the Borg into something more familiar and less frightening. There's an argument to be made that storytelling requires evolution, that villains must adapt to stay engaging. And in isolation, the Borg Queen is undeniably compelling. But her continued prominence comes at a cost: the erosion of what made the Borg unique in the first place. What was once a faceless, existential threat has become something closer to a classic sci-fi empire, with a throne, a ruler, and, ultimately, a weakness. And that may be the greatest loss of all.